Yo, how's it going, you guys? It's Marcus Scraper. So let's take a look at Tesla stock, Palantir stock, and in addition, let's take a look at the divergences we're seeing with the S&P 500 completely collapsing and also the ARK Innovation ETF starting to have a recovery. And why are we seeing this divergence between the S&P 500 and the ARKK Innovation ETF? Does this mean that ARKK is basically making a false move to the upside and is going to catch up to the S&P 500 and ultimately break down to the downside, or is this divergence going to last and continue? Well, let's take a look at this now. But before we get into this video, if you get any value from this content, don't forget to put a smash down on the like button. It really helps this content, helps other people see this video. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to this channel. I'd really appreciate it. And let's get on into this. So Tesla stock right over here, we talked about in our last update that basically what we were seeing and the update that we gave was on the 11th. And we said that this was a sneaky and the most bullish signal that I've seen from Tesla stock. And the next day, literally, we had a pretty impressive day, move to the upside. And since then, we gave some of it back, but we have recovered all of it since and had the highest close that we've had since basically we fell off the cliff a little bit right over here and moved to the downside. So this is pretty exciting. And I think this is going to continue. Again, I've been talking about this trend to the downside that we've seen, and we've tested it over here, again over here, and I think we're going to do it again in this area over here. Well, it looks like, I mean, how many days? So we're going to hit it at some point. I'm not sure when we're going to hit it, sooner, later, I'm not sure, but I think we're going to hit this and going to have some sort of a battle against this, and my bias is still to the upside. And let's take a look at Palantir. Tesla, I'm less confident in the future of what Tesla's going to do for the reason of what we're seeing in the S&P 500. We'll get into that soon. Palantir, a little bit more bullish because basically of what's going on with the S&P 500 and the ARKK Innovation ETF. And the S&P 500 doesn't really impact Palantir too much. But we can see with Palantir stock, basically we have been going higher. I don't exactly remember when my last update was, but I think my last update was probably somewhere around here. And I've been talking since then that my target for the stock is still a lot higher. It could have been even before then when I made my update. I don't remember exactly when. It's been quite some time. But I said in that update, and I still think it's going to be the case, is that my target in the short term is filling this gap right over here. And what is that gap again? That gap, we're talking about $27.53. So $27.53, we're talking about something over here. This would also mean basically is that I think we're going to go over here. And so a gap above or a break above this trend. And this is a trend that basically goes all the way back and hits some interesting points in history. So we can see if we can break above here. And we're kind of trading in this channel here and see if we can break to the upside. This is where I think we're going to initially go. But if I'm looking at this pattern here, basically, and this channel here, it looks like we could go significantly higher and potentially reach 30. It looks like we want to go to 30. But first things first, my initial price target. Let's take a look at S&P 500 and also ARK Innovation ETF. We can see that we've been having a breakdown in the last 3 sessions. An absolute breakdown. This is also looking pretty bearish. We broke down, gap down below the 50-period moving average. This looks like we want to go down further. It just does. It looks like we want to go down further. This trend line would be the first area that we want to stop. And then in terms of a destination of where we're trying to go, maybe it's this gap down here around 411 and some change. That's kind of filling that gap right here. If you want to know exactly what that number is, we can look right over here. The high over here, 411 and 5 cents. That's the gap right there. So pay attention to that number there if we go see prices to the downside. And then in addition, we also have the 100-period moving average here. Maybe that's where we're trying to go. We don't know where to the downside we might be trying to go. And now that we covered the downside, what could we see that maybe this was the move that we were trying to go for, and then that we're going to go to the upside? Well, we would have to see a pretty strong reversal, and basically I'd want to see an attempt at filling this gap really quickly. That would be a signal maybe that we're going to see some more upside. And if we don't see this gap filled really quickly, again, I would expect a move to the downside. And we'll see what happens. The most bullish scenario would be an open above the 50-period moving average right over here. Would be the ultimate bullish scenario again. And then we would expect this gap to be filled, maybe that same day or the following day. Now, at the same time, again, just looking at this and the levels that we broke at face value looks a little bit bearish. So, looking at the ARK Innovation ETF for that exact period of, we're talking about the last 3 sessions. Well, we only gone up basically in this last 3 sessions. That one session we clearly were to the downside, but overall we're going to the upside here. And not only that, we broke out of this significant pattern that we've been trading within. So this is pretty bullish. And we had a whole candle above that trend line. So that's pretty interesting. I wouldn't be surprised for us to, well, first of all, we clearly are hitting some resistance. We can see some of the lows over here. And that's kind of what we're hitting up against at the present. We can see that this right here is hitting up against it right now. However, I would expect us to hit this line at some point. And what is this line exactly? We're talking about prices from back over here. The low, for example, $126.82. So $126.82 from where we currently are. We closed at $118. So that's a significant move to the upside. And that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that my next target would be going over here. And it's not going to be a straight line to the upside. We have a lot of resistance basically that could push us down and up, trade sideways. But at the same time, we could be watching this trend line as an early indication if we break below this trend line significantly. So it's been holding up fairly well since. I mean, we broke below it intraday a couple times, so pay attention to that. But we want to, if we see a gap down below this trend line, for example, that would be one indication. So we are expecting to see a divergence to continue, maybe the S&P 500 going lower in the short term and the ARKK going higher in the short term. So this is interesting. We also have to be paying attention to other things that are happening in the market. We're seeing bonds start to go up and stocks start to go down overall, or with like the S&P 500. So this is definitely not a bullish sign for innovative stocks, speculative growth stocks. So we'll see how long this divergence can last, but this would also, again, hinge on bonds calming down a little bit, at least staying flat. Because if bonds continue to go up, I don't see this divergence going for too long, at least. We'll see. But in the short term, still bullish for Tesla and Palantir. Again, Tesla is within the S&P 500, so if we see a big pullback with the S&P 500, I would expect it would drag on Tesla stock as well. Well, I hope you guys got some value from this content. If you haven't already, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel for more content like this, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. And keep in mind that none of this is financial advice. This is just some random guy on YouTube drawing some stick figure lines on a chart talking to you guys.